Hello again, welcome to Essentially Being. I'm Jane Trelevin, and today I have a real treat for you, something a little different. It's not going to be all about me this time. As you know from my blog posts, the healing journey from cancer or from any chronic illness is a holistic journey. And that means engaging with aspects of ourself that perhaps we've ignored for a really long time. About 18 months ago, I met Sarah McLeod on a beach through her family, and her first words to me were, "I want to work with you." And because 2014 was my year of saying yes to the universe, I said, sure. I had no idea what she did, but I just trusted that she and I were meant to work together. So we have been working together since then, and in particular I think Sarah's work was instrumental to my recovery since I last came out of hospital. Sarah is an energy healer, and I'll let her tell you what that means, if she can. So welcome, Sarah.
Hi Jane, thanks.
So I just described you as an energy healer. Is that what you are?
That's the best label I can come up with. Yeah.
So what is it then, leaving the label aside, what is it that you actually do?
It's funny that you said I didn't know what you were in for, what I did when I asked you to come and have a session, because the truth is I don't actually really know what I do either. I really just get my head out of the way and tune in my mind's eye and listen. Listen to a person's consciousness and see what is revealed and that needs to be cleared. So if you like, I'm working with the flow, and I'm seeing where there's stagnation or discord or fragmentation in a person's energy field and assisting that to flow.
Right. Okay. So being an energy healer is not something that we learn about at school. So how did you come to be doing this?
It's really a lifetime of study, and I found myself on this path when I was looking for my own healing. Yes. So my own healing journey is what has led me here. I have acknowledged in the last little while that being born to the parents that I was born to was instrumental in setting me on this path, because they're both healers in their own right. Yep. And have been on the forefront of transformation and evolution of consciousness, and that's been their life's journey.
It has. And can I just put in there that readers of my blog will know that I've referred to the Hoffman process from time to time, because I found that a very transformative experience for me. Your parents have been heavily involved in the Hoffman process and its development here in Australia, haven't they?
Yes, they were. And my mum's a teacher, my dad was on the board, and they were friends with Bob, and they found it incredibly powerful for people. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So you attribute your journey to them?
The beginnings of the journey, for sure. And my dad also introduced me at the age of 18 to my first spiritual teacher, who's a meditation teacher by the name of Master Charles Cannon. His Vedic name is His Holiness Swami Vivekananda. He's an American who lived in India for many years and first taught me to turn the focus inward. Yep. And start looking at myself on the inside rather than trying to look for the answers outside of myself.
Okay, good. And again, Master Charles Cannon is coming to Australia later this year, isn't he?
He's coming at the end of September.
Great. Okay. Well, if anyone's interested in finding out more about him, I'll put a link in the blog post.
He's the real deal. He's the genuine article.
Yes. Well, he's been trained within an authentic lineage himself, hasn't he? Which is something that a lot of spiritual teachers don't have these days.
Yes,
Yes.
he devoted his life, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so you met him and he taught you to turn your attention inward and no doubt to find that place of stillness within you.
Yes, and there was a lot of turbulence inside of me. I had been very, very lost at the time that I met him. I'd had an experience as a child that was very traumatic and come to understand that it fragmented my sense of self completely. Yep. And I also had a very severe spinal injury prior to meeting him, so I was in an incredible amount of pain. So I was quite lost, in a tremendous amount of pain and really struggling when I met him. So whether I liked it or not, the way through that intensity was to find my own healing, and it's from all those experiences that has led to now what I do, shaping me who I am.
Okay, and so for a number of years you worked as a massage therapist. Do you think that was a key step along the path as well for you?
No question about it, because I really came to understand how, a lot of bodies passing through my hands, and the understanding of anatomy and the understanding of energy and systems flow, and it really gave me a foundation for understanding how the body works and where it's out of sync, and meridian lines, and just the whole energy flow in a human form was ingrained from that experience.
Okay. So, when you work with people now, what is it that you actually do? I've had sessions with you both in person and in over distance, and the experience I've had of each of those has been very different. I've certainly found that being with you in person, I can be a little distracted by whatever it is that you're doing, but whereas when we've had some distance healings, I've had some very profound experiences. I've gone in very deeply, and I don't want to share too much about what's actually happened, but it's been very much a different sort of experience. So can you explain a bit about the difference between the two and what it is that you do?
Well, sure. When I'm working with somebody in person and it's hands-on, I come with a little bag of tools, and some of those are shamanic tools, and some of those are tools that involve sound and vibration. For me, tuning into somebody's consciousness, tuning into an energy field, is really working on that level of consciousness, and that, of course, is the level of vibration.
Yep.
So by bringing that into balance in a human form, that's really shifting the patterns of discord. So in a person-to-person session, yes, there are smells, there's colours, there's lights, there's sound, there's music, and it is very stimulating. But I also guarantee, well, I don't guarantee, but I pretty much guarantee that you're going to knock out on the table at some point, and it's like a reboot. It's like you go into that very, very deep kind of delta theta brain state, and it's that beautiful deep trance state where the real healing energy can come through. It's the mind is disengaged and the body just is in a very receptive place. And then a distance session, obviously you don't have the hands-on and the colours and lights and sounds. What I ask people to do is listen to a piece of music that I've created and put the blinders on, put the headphones on, take the phone off the hook and lay down so that they can go into that same very deep trance state and be receptive to what's coming through on my end. And then I'll go and I'll have a photo of the person, and I'll tune in to their energy field and their consciousness, and I will get a transcript. I will actually send a transcript after the session of what's transpired on my end. And in some cases, it's very much, for me, like having a body in front of me. There doesn't seem to be a lot of difference, but for the person receiving, obviously it's very different.
Yes.
And I do really like the person to knock out and have that deep deep experience, because that's where the transformation happens. It's like the mind just disengages and you can reboot and have that shift in perception.
Yes, I'm just remembering some of the visions that I've had when I've been in that very, very deep trance, and it's been very realistic. It's been as if I've actually been there. So you talked briefly about your own trauma, and you talked about fragmentation of our sense of self or of our soul is very much a central element of shamanism, isn't it? That idea that through doing this type of work we can bring home those pieces of us that may have shattered off. Could you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and that's from my experience. I mean, I know there's the word soul retrieval gets thrown around a lot, and in my understanding, when you have a trauma or you have an impact, say a car accident, or certainly some bad news, like you get a cancer diagnosis, there is a reverberation in the energy field of that news, of that trauma or that impact, and it's held in the energy field with no way to release. And then if the trauma is particularly intense, the analogy I like to use is of a mirror shattering, because it's pieces or shards of yourself split off.
Yep.
And it becomes clear in a session if a person has had that fragmentation and there needs to be some kind of recall. So my job really is just to, I always come into a session with the intention that a person's going to be aligned mind, body and spirit, and that they're coming home to themselves, and that feeling of coming home to yourself is just retrieving the pieces of you that have been lost. And that feels like an awakening, because you're suddenly like, oh, wow, no wonder I was being a nutbag, because I was just, part of me wasn't here. And there's just, people are functioning on automatic pilot, and then they're not, and then they realize something's not right, and they realize something's wrong, and then they start to invoke healing, and they start to go down the path of healing, and they realize that they're just functioning from this place where there's something broken, or that there's something that has been tweaked, or there's a torque in their field, and that plays in their minds, and it runs these loops, and so they're just creating their world with this fragmented experience of reality.
And that makes sense, doesn't it, of that idea of dissociation that people who have experienced trauma do have, that idea of not being present. One of my meditation teachers, Sogyal Rinpoche, calls meditation bringing the mind home. So it's that similar concept, that idea of coming back into this shell or whatever it is, that actual bringing home of ourselves, rather than that dissociated state where you have that sense of sort of being out of the body. Is that similar to your understanding of it?
I've definitely put my hands on people and it's like there's nobody home, or they've vacated the building, and then it's like, who's running the show? You're driving from the back of the bus. And so for me, it's just like the healing is about reclaiming your consciousness and saying, wait a minute, I'm here. This is my house. This is my vessel.
Yeah.
And I'm going to co-create this reality. It's definitely a path of surrender. It's not about being in control. I have learned in no uncertain terms that the healing just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more beautiful as I surrender more deeply. So that's why I also say I don't know what I do, because if I think I have a clue and that I'm running the show, then it's, that's all ego. It's really just the surrendering to all healing comes from the divine, and opening to that beautiful understanding and that beautiful surrender, that when you are open and connected to the divine, that miracles happen,
Sure. Yes, miracles do happen. So there was a Friday nearly 12 months ago when I had just come out of hospital and I couldn't walk unassisted. I needed a walking stick and I could only walk up and down the hallway where I live. and you and I arranged for me to have a session, and you actually got another couple of people to work with me. And the next day I got up out of bed and I was able to walk, and I walked around the block, and it was pretty amazing. So how do you think having other people involved in that session might have helped me? I mean, who knows what triggered my recovery, but it felt like there was a connection.
Oh, look, of course I'd like to think there was and be like, oh, wow, isn't that cool? But again, it's like I can't take credit for that, you know. It's just aligning of conscious intention.
Yep.
And the understanding that conscious intention is the most powerful tool that we have. And in your situation, which I believe was very dire at the time, recognizing that, you know, this is bigger than me, and calling on a couple of other energy healers, shamans, light workers, whatever you want to call them, and asking for their focus as well. And it's just like when you get combined focus from different people, all with the same intention to assist this person to heal or to evolve, it kind of puts you under the microscope, opens up the aperture, and allows this giant channel of energy to come into you, because we're all, in effect, praying for your well-being.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fact that you could walk the next day, it's like, yes, you know, yeah, it works. But again, it's just, I just can't say that it's any one thing, you know. It's, yeah.
Yeah, it may just be synchronous timing, who knows, but we're open to the possibility. So you've done a bit of work with people with cancer, haven't you?
Yep.
And how does the cancer present itself to you? Do you see cancer in inverted commas in someone's energy field or consciousness?
It presents in a couple of different ways. I can imagine kind of the zoom in and the zoom out. Often I'll go kind of on a really cellular level and see the cancer cells, and another time I'll kind of zoom out and see the mass.
Yep.
And then another times I'll see the overall picture of a person, and that includes the lymph and the you know, all the systems at play. And then I'll zoom out again and I'll see the energy field and what's around it. So working on kind of multi-dimensional levels there, and ultimately for me, I feel like the fine-tuning of a person's energy field is like the further out, the more subtle it is. That's where you affect change in those very, very subtle levels of a person's energy field, that it's going to filter down into the physical. I heard a beautiful quote that said, somebody said that energy precedes matter and consciousness precedes energy. So if you affect change and create a shift on the level of consciousness, then it's going to filter into the physical body. And you know, Western medicine obviously is going just straight for the physical matter. Yes. But they're not addressing the holistic perspective. They're not addressing where the discord or the fragmentation is in a person's field. So even if, you know, they remove the tumor or, you know, radiate the bejesus out of the tissue, it's not going to necessarily affect what the source of what created that cancer in the first place was. Mm-hmm. So the person is going to have a mindset and a consciousness that could recreate it, because they haven't healed it on that level.
No, that's right. And in fact, a number of cancer survivors or thrivers talk about having an emotional issue or a traumatic issue that they recognise they haven't addressed, and that becomes a big focus for them in their healing process. And I know that's been my personal experience, that having gone and done the Hoffman process a month before I was diagnosed, when I got the diagnosis, I knew exactly what the emotional issue was, and I was reasonably convinced that the healing had already begun, because I had started to transform that issue or transcend that issue. But as with anything, it's a process, so it doesn't happen immediately. So And you actually have a piece of music, don't you, or a meditation for people to use when they've been diagnosed with cancer. Can you talk a little bit about the music that you make?
Sure. Again, that is just me getting my head out of the way and listening.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a master musician. I'm third grade pianist. That's about as far as I got. But I'll sit down in front of a program and just allow what wants to come through, and suddenly there's a composition. And then again with the dialogue, if there's a narration, the same thing. It'd just be sitting in meditation, and what wants to come through will come through. So it is very much created with the guidance of what I call spirit.
Yes.
And my own connection to my own higher self. So it feels directly connected to that in that way. So yeah, it's a journey of unraveling and bringing people's awareness and attention and shifting their vibration and mindset around how they hold the disease.
Yeah, and so we've spoken before about the role of meditation, sometimes, and this healing for people who have been diagnosed with a cancer. The healing may or may not happen on a physical level. That's fair to say, isn't it? That there are no guarantees, but what this sort of work can do for people is also just bring a better sense of peace into their lives, so that if in fact on a physical level they're not going to be healing, they are healed on another level, and they're able to pass or die more comfortably. Is that your experience as well?
I've had
not for you personally, obviously, but
personally,
people
no.
you've worked with.
Working with people, it's really become clear to me that when someone is diagnosed, everybody comes at it with a different mindset. When I met you, Jane, you were just like, I'm going to heal from this. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to surrender to everything. You quit your corporate job. You changed your diet. You started to meditate. You just did a 180-degree shift and totally surrendered to what that was going to bring to you. And so for me, that was like the universe was like, yay, Jane, here you go. Here's your health. And then there's some people who are like, I'm going to fight this, and and then there's some people like terrified and stuck in fear. Everybody has a different response. The people that I've worked with, again, yes, no guarantee. I could never guarantee a positive outcome, or that would not be wise. No. But what I can offer is that I'll certainly pray and intend for a miracle and intend for that person to be well. And what I've come to understand is that, especially with a terminal diagnosis, is that there's this beautiful, again, there's the word surrender, there's this beautiful surrendering that happens when people get to a place of, this is what's happening. Maybe they're going to have this completely mind-altering, life-changing evolution of their consciousness in the time that they have left, and they're going to have this incredible experience of understanding life in a whole new way before they go, like you said, and find that peace within themselves. So sometimes my job has been to have them come to that place and be at peace, so that they can let go in the truest sense of the word.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Well, I think we're running out of time. So if anyone's interested in exploring working with you, what's the best way for them to go about it?
They can send me an email, Jane. Email's always good. And distant healing, obviously, for anyone who's not in San Francisco. Coming to Australia in December for sure. So,
fabulous.
Be in Melbourne then. But email's good, and happy to be of service, really. Just that's why I'm here.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And for those of you who are interested, I'll put Sarah's contact details in the link below the video. In the meantime, thanks for joining us. Be happy, be well, and just be. Thanks.